Welcome. On February the 5th, 1981, at 11 o'clock p.m., patrons of 4 bathhouses in downtown Toronto, the Barracks, Club Toronto, the Richmond Street Health Emporium, and Romans 2 Health and Recreation Spa were surprised by 200 Metropolitan Toronto police officers armed with sledgehammers, billy clubs, and crowbars in a series of coordinated raids, Operation Soap. It was the largest mass arrest in Canada since the 1970 October crisis. Law enforcement officials claimed that the raids were the result of 6 months of undercover work into alleged prostitution and other indecent acts at these establishments. Those inside the baths were subjected to excessive mistreatment by police, especially when it came to verbal taunts about their sexuality, being called fairies, faggots, pansies, and queers. In total, 20 men were charged with keeping a common bawdy house, 289 were charged with being found-ins, and 2 were charged with buggery. The raids marked a turning point for Toronto's gay community, as the protest that followed indicated people weren't willing to endure derogatory treatment deriding their lifestyle from the police or any other spheres of influence. Welcome to No More Shit, Operation Soap Revisited, which is part of the 2017 Myseum Intersections Festival and the Storytelling Festival of Toronto's Storyfire. It's the second of 2 events that we have been doing, the second of 3 storytelling performances. Our stories today were inspired in part by interviews that we were lucky enough to have the opportunity to conduct, thanks to historian Tom Cooper, who connected us with 2 men who were found-ins and a 3rd who was a keeper, that was an employee, that February night in 1981, as well as the community discussion and World Cafe event that we organized at the 519 Community Centre on March 12th. We'd like to thank in particular Myseum of Toronto for supporting our project, as well as the 519 Community Centre, Storytelling Toronto, Sonia Reynolds of Midnight Production, who created beautiful postcards for us, and whose video is on display with material from the Canadian Lesbian and Gay Archives, and most especially today, we want to thank Glad Day Bookshop. We also want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belgian Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwa and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lake. Today, you are going to hear some wonderful stories and some equally wonderful music. Our musician, Samantha Chaulk, is a wonderful performer who is going to be part of this year's Toronto Fringe Festival. Marcus Peterson is a storyteller and writer. He and I have worked together on a performance piece called Cold from Hades, the story of the Les Mouches Fantastiques. And Rico Rodriguez is a longtime storyteller and a founding member of Queers in Your Ears, one of Toronto's premier storytelling troops. I'm Jeffrey Canton, and I hope that you enjoy our stories today.
Knocking them down, resisting arrest as a kicked on the ground, searching their
The stink of pig shit doesn't smell any different now than it did in 1981. You'd think that 36 years later, I'd be able to talk about what happened more easily, but I can't. I'm still angry. I was humiliated, demeaned, but I got over that. But they haven't changed. In 36 fucking years, they haven't learned anything. On February 5th, 1981, I was arrested as a found-in at the Romans 2 on Bay Street, just south of College, as part of Toronto Police's Operation Soap, one of 289 found-ins in the raids on the Barracks, the Club Toronto, the Richmond, and the Romans. I'd like to correct that term, though. I wasn't a found-in. I was a patron of a gay establishment that catered to men who socialized with other men and had consensual sex with other men. And the bathhouses weren't bawdy houses either. The police can claim that they were looking for prostitutes, for hustlers, but they'd have found damn few of them in the bathhouses. They knew already that the hustlers hung out on the stroll between Grosvenor, Breadalbane, Bay, and Queen's Park Crescent. But Toronto was a very different world before that cold, freezing February night in 1981 when the police smashed their way through the baths. It was a different place. It was just a little over a decade since Stonewall. Church Street, Toronto's gay village, was still in its infancy. Big house parties were the way that you met people. And you'd be lucky to get a couple of hundred people out to Pride. I'm telling you, it was a very different place. But you could be fired from your job, you could be thrown out of your apartment, you could be denied basic services for being gay. After closing time, the streets were a dangerous place, due not only to gay bashers, but to police. Being out was a risky choice that it took a lot of guts to acknowledge. But that night, it was shocking to be arrested because, well, I wasn't expecting it. I mean, there had been raids on the baths before, but the last big one in 1978, in December at the barracks, 23 people were arrested. This was huge. I guess I just never expected that it would happen to me. The Romans was my bathhouse of choice, in particular because of who was on offer. But there were plenty of bathhouses to choose from in Toronto. There was the Barracks and Club Toronto. There was the Richmond Health Emporium, Toronto's most luxurious and elegant bathhouse. There was the International Steam Room, the Backdoor Gym and Spa, but my tastes were rather vanilla, sexually. Although I was intrigued by what they were getting up to at the Barracks. Little S&M, bondage and domination, leather and denim. But I have to say that the Romans was a perfect fit for me, both in terms of the clientele and the layout. Because I like my bathhouse dark, full of windy little hallways. I like that feeling of wondering, where the fuck am I? Slightly disoriented. Yeah, places where you could watch people before hooking up. And then going to his room or yours, because I wasn't much interested in public sex. If I was going to hook up with someone, I wanted to go back to a room. I preferred my sex horizontal rather than vertical. But that night, February 5th, I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't caught in flagrante delicto. I was alone in my room by myself with the door closed. I was just, well, maybe taking a break, which is a euphemism for not now, I'm resting, or not now, whatever. But suddenly, all hell broke loose. There was banging, and it sounded like the doors were being kicked in. The whole building shook, and there was the thumping of stomping boots up the stairs, an avalanche of noise, and then suddenly there's this loud pounding at my door. Just about stopped my heart. This is a raid! Get out and come to the front! It sounded like they were trying to take the hinges off the door. Just a minute, I'll open it. But before I can, they break the lock. They smash the door frame. They pry the door open with a crowbar. Two cops grab me and pull me out into the hallway. You're being charged as a found-in at a common body house. Get out and come to the front. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have time to get dressed. I was told to go to the front immediately. I came just in my towel. It was like a blitzkrieg of the mind. And when I came to the front, there must have been 20 cops there. And it was quite clear that they were prepared to do as much damage as they possibly could. I'm corralled with other nearly naked men, some of whom are weeping, terrified, because they don't know what this will mean for their families, their careers, their lives. Others, like myself, are just simply stunned. Numb. A surreal pandemonium. Surprise and shock. The drag queens are the most vocal of us, though, and they yell at the police with outrage, asking what right they had to do this. They start asking us our room numbers, one by one. And then they write them in black marker on the back of our hands. One of the cops says that it's indelible ink and won't come off for months. Another one says, too bad the place doesn't catch on fire. Then we could charge them for escaping custody. The cavity searches for illegal substances start next. One by one, we're ordered to bend over. Oh, come on, surely you've done this before. One of the cops points to a man with a ring on his finger and says, this is going to be the biggest mistake of your life. He threatens to call their wives, as they've done after previous raids. The worst ones, though, are the blushing ones. The ones who are too embarrassed to do anything. The ones who don't stop what's happening. The ones who are too afraid to stop their coworkers from calling us disgusting faggots. I discovered my cousin Peter huddled in a corner. Peter, who I reluctantly brought out of the closet at 14 and who came out with a bang at Expo 67. We're holding each other because it feels like a Holocaust moment. We're Jews and we're looking into each other's eyes, and I'm saying to them, they can't separate us. We're family. We have to stay together. It really was like a Holocaust moment, that moment where, well, it felt like at any moment we had been rounded up and were going to be hauled away. We'd been herded into this room. Nearly 100 gay men. Most of us were naked. Some of us had lost our towels. We'd been herded into this room while they demolished the place. Gay men being verbally abused, being psychologically tormented, some of us beaten. But it was worse. It was worse at the barracks, because there they actually herded them into the showers. They herded them into the showers, and my friend Alan heard one cop say to another, too bad these pipes aren't hooked up to the gas. And his buddy looked at these naked, huddled men, these men huddling together, and said, yeah, because that way we could annihilate you all. Then the processing starts. They call us to the front, one by one, to the front window where the sergeant's sitting in the office. They ask your name, address, telephone number, your employer's name, his number. They go through my wallet. They take note of everything. My OHIP card number, my driver's license, car registration and insurance, company dental plan, social insurance number. I ask them why, and the sergeant says to me, don't ask questions of the police. I don't know how to react. He just stares at me for minutes on end and then says, what's up, faggot? Lost for words? It took all of my energy not to tell him to go fuck himself. But I knew that withholding information would just merely prolong things. So I give it up. And I'm given my discharge slip and my summons to appear. And I'm told that I'm allowed to go get my clothes and get dressed. For a moment I panic. Where's Peter? And then I turn around and see that he's right behind me. As we move through the bathhouse, we see lockers that had been looted and pillaged, decimated by bolt cutters. We pass two plainclothes cops, who I later learned had infiltrated the bathhouse undercover. They barged their way forcibly into the office and released the door, allowing in the flood. No advance warning. We see a cop throwing an ounce of pot into the hallway. No effort whatsoever to confiscate it. I mean, even though illegal possession, drug trafficking, and prostitution were the excuse to raid the bars in the first place, they didn't care. We go out into the night, and the cold of that February night slaps us in the face. Peter comes home with me. We walk like a couple of zombies, humiliated, too exhausted to fall asleep, too furious to stay awake. I was an openly gay man in a relationship with a man I loved. An open relationship, but very committed. He knew where I was that night. He wasn't angry at me. Nobody was angry at me. Nobody judged me. I didn't have any of that societal tongue lashing or backlog of emotions that society would judge me for having been there. But I felt violated, enraged. No more shit. A flood of memories come to mind. Cops pulling me out of clubs, asking for my ID, which they'd seen. The same cops had seen the same ID time and time again. Leaving the St. Charles Tavern, being grabbed by the cops who push up my sleeve before I even have time to react. Looking for needle marks, they tell me. Walking down the streets of Toronto, passing cops who call me faggot, queer, pansy, as they walk by, as they drive by. Watching cops pull men out of the Parkside Tavern or to the washroom at the Bloor Street subway. Cops telling me to move on or they're going to arrest me for selling a gay newspaper to gay people in front of a gay bar. Cops trailing me in the middle of the night as I walk through a field, as I walk through a park. Their high beams on high, not saying anything, just having a good time. My anger is ferocious. I'm ready to erupt. I'm tired of being humiliated, harassed. No more shit. That anger is channeled into the demo the very next night, the first demo after the raids. I wasn't going to go. I was going to sit home and lick my wounds, but my cousin Peter said that I had to go. So did my lover Doug. And that night after the raids, February 6th, I was engulfed in an ocean of queerness, buffeted not by waves, but by an oratorio of chants coming at me through the night from all sides. No more raids. Gays fight back. Enough is enough. Gays have rights. 2, 4, 6, 8. Toronto's now a fully state, culminating in Chris Birchall's incandescent "no more shit" and its corollary, "fuck you, 52." The night air filled with this glorious, red-hot mantra of ours. And it didn't end then. 2 weeks later, there's another demo on the 20th of February, the Enough is Enough rally. And that night, there are even more of us. There are 4,000 of us. And we're not alone. We're joined by women, by labor, by straight people, and ethnic communities who are going to join us to march from Queen's Park to 52 Division. That night, citizens of Toronto, gay and straight, black and white, immigrant and native-born Canadians, were joining together to protest a gay community under fire. There were speeches. The most moving was one by Lamona Johnson. She was the widow of a black New Canadian who had been shot to death in his home by 2 Toronto police officers. She spoke to a hushed crowd, saying, "The murder of Albert, my husband, was one of the most brutal and senseless killings of any innocent man that has ever taken place in this city. The raids and arrests of members of the Toronto gay community is a further indication that the police force of this city is lacking in discipline and proper supervision. I have a responsibility to my children, myself, and my community to speak out." And after the speeches, we set off with this big, beautiful banner. It was massive, emblazoned with the words, "Enough is enough, stop police violence." It even had been designed with 4 detachable bamboo poles to make it easier to go around corners and through intersections. And we started off peacefully enough. But that all changed when we marched into Yonge Street. Because although we were more organized, so were the police. They sent in undercover cops to act as agents provocateurs, at least 5 of them that we know of. 2 of them even wore "No More Shit" buttons on their great big chests. They were so obvious, these big burly guys who looked like they were ready to brawl. We looked them right in the eyes, and it dawned on them that they weren't so undercover. As I looked around at the crowd, seeing who was there, I would keep glancing back at them. But by the time I pointed them out to Doug and Peter, they'd taken the buttons off. The police, when we got to Queen's Park, were lined up on the steps. I guess they were afraid that we were going to try to break down the doors of the legislature again. This time they came, though, complete with badges. Do you know, the Body Politic and the Toronto Clarion got photos of these guys holding the banner. They had pretended to be drunks and moved up to the front of the protest, and then they sliced through the banner with the utility knife. Yeah. Those agents, they spat in people's faces, they shoved demonstrators, they threatened some people with lighted cigarettes, they caused fights. Undercover agent who would disrupt the protest by going out on the road and taunting motorists, speaking with an exaggerated lisp to pretend that he was one of the demonstrators. Civil disobedience was in the air. My God. People were drunk with it, with the prospect of it, with the prospect of the power of taking ownership again of turf that we considered our own, even if it belonged to us only grudgingly and on loan. I felt incredibly powerful and totally vulnerable. No more shit. That echoes through my past. It builds and continues to my present. Yeah, my present. An utterly meaningless police apology, fatuous, if nothing else. The uproar caused by the Black Lives Matters protest, an all too valid response to the police presence. The arrest of 70 men for having consensual sex at Marie Curtis Park in Etobicoke in an undercover sting called Project Marie, culminating in January of this year with a video shot in downtown Toronto of police officers kicking and tasering a black man who has been restrained and is not resisting arrest. And then they're trying to intimidate the witness, taking the video and saying to him, "He'll spit in your face. You'll get AIDS." No more shit. I mean, congratulations. After 36 years, the police have told me what I've known all along, that I should have been able to engage in the social and sexual interactions at the bathhouse, at the Romans too, without being disturbed. I mean, what exactly has changed? You know, Margaret Atwood appeared in the protests that took place in March '81. What do the police have against cleanliness, she asked cheekily. And then she continued, you know I would be very angry if I were taking a bath and somebody thought they had the right to come and kick down my door. Why did the cops raid the baths? I've sometimes wondered why schoolyard bullies beat up little kids. Because they can. They think that it's fun. It gives them a sense of power. But she said, it makes me want to throw up. And I don't think anybody in a society that calls itself a democracy should have to suffer from institutionalized contempt. 36 years later, no matter what you think, we're still under attack. I was angry 36 years ago for being arrested in the Romans. I was angry at the raids on the bathhouses and the arrest of over 300 gay men. My friends were angry, my lover was angry, my community was angry. And you know what? I'm still fucking angry. 36 years of rage. That's a lot of fucking shit.
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops, and that's where you'll find me. Somewhere over
last night, my daughter Paulina came to visit me. She wasn't happy with me. When she was a little girl and she wasn't happy with me, I used to tell her a story to make it happen. Once, there was a condor. He flew majestically up the Cordillera de los Andes. And when he was hungry, he flew down, in search for his favorite food, mice. Now, if the mice were not careful, they would perish at the claws of the condor. And some of them were not careful, and they died. They got eaten. But there was one trickster mouse who played tricks on the condor. My name is Sebastián Reynoso. I am a man. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. My daughter Paulina has 2 beautiful children. I used to be a husband and a miner and a union leader. On September 11, 1973, me and my compañeros, El Pato, Sergio, and others, we were huddled in a hotel, ready for the call, ready to defend our democratically elected socialist government in Chile. The military was taking over, but we were ready to fight. But it was all for naught. Los milicos and carabineros were all over the place. La Moneda, the government pilot being bombarded. Our president was being killed. El Pato said, if only they would have given us the weapons. Even if we had the weapons, they would have overpowered us. Now it was our turn to flee that hotel. And we had to leave through alleyways, carefully, because the military were looking for us. And we made it to the outskirts of town and stayed in a safe house. There was a curfew from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the morning the next day. We couldn't get out. Now, when I used to go to Santiago for meetings, the men, my other compañeros, would say after the meetings, let's go out, look for the ladies of the night. And I always said, no, I would stay behind. And they tease me, oh, you're your wife's husband. A man of only one hole, they said, disgustingly. And I stayed behind, didn't care. But when they were gone, I went out. I went out to parks, public washrooms. I wanted to be with the men. No, I'm not one of them. And I wasn't one of them, but I wanted to see what they were doing. And they were doing things. And sometimes I did things with them. But that night, there wasn't going to be none of that for me. I wasn't going to go out anywhere. I would have been killed if I went out. We waited a couple of days. And we were going to leave town in a borrowed car, took back roads. We were going to go to El Alto, our mining town, to see our families and to see what would happen and build resistance for there. But we met some men, compañeros on the way, and they told us there's an operation called El Condor, Operación El Condor, and they're killing people indiscriminately. Some of our compañeros have been killed. We better leave, so we detoured and went up the Cordilleras, crossing Los Andes, and went all the way to the city of Mendoza, where we stayed for a couple of days, and then we made it to Buenos Aires. And we wanted to build a resistance from there. Now, some of our friends were being exiled from Chile, and they found refuge in Paris, and we wanted to go there, but we were not selected to go to Paris. We were allowed to make phone calls to our families. I talked to my wife. And when I talked to Paulina, who was really upset, I told her the story about the condor and the mouse. She got better. I told my wife, we're not gonna go to Paris. I don't know where we'll go. We'll have to go somewhere. One day, a man with a French accent called us and told us he was gonna come visit us. He said his name was Monsieur Robillard. And we said, oh, we're going to Paris. And he said, no, you will go to Toronto. Oh, Canadiense. Québécois. Oh, he worked for the embassy and he was going to give us refuge in Toronto. Now, El Patricio, El Pato, and I had been to Sudbury once before as minors to a conference with the steel workers. And it was summertime and they told us that it snowed up to here and it got cold. Monsieur Robillard said, it'll be a little bit cold when you get to Toronto in November. A little bit cold. When we got to the airport, a little bit cold. We froze our balls. We were driven all the way to a church on Avenue Road called St. Paul's United. And there was the minister who received us with a whole committee, and I never will forget Senora Mackenzie. Senora Mackenzie was about 85 million years old, and she knitted. And she knitted all the time, and she was knitting at meetings, and she was knitting that day, and she was knitting on the pews of the church. And Sergio and El Pato and myself never felt warm until she gave us a sweater each. It made us feel very, very warm. Now things started happening very fast for us. We got enrolled in English lessons, we got part-time jobs, and we went to bars on the Danforth, the Trojan Horse, and we sang our revolutionary songs, and we drank our cortados on Bloor Street cafes. And we organized politically against the bastard Pinochet. And we started organizing to get our families to come here. In July of 1974, Sergio's family arrived. Not long after that, we drove to the airport with Patricio, who cried all the way there because he was going to meet his son. And when we looked at him, we knew it was his son. We called him the ugly duckling, El Patito Feo. He looked exactly like his dad. We called him Pato Jr. A month later, my wife arrived, and my daughter Paulina was there, and she told me she was 4.5 now. She was a little bit upset when she looked at me, but I told her the story, the condor and the mouse. She got better. We moved to Sudbury. We were miners, and through the steel workers, we got jobs up there. And Paulina went to school. Her English got better. Well, better than her mom's and mine in no time. And they helped us become Canadian citizens. The day of our swearing-in ceremony, Paulina wore a red and white dress. She was beautiful. Now I became a union leader. And I had to go to meetings. And I went to meetings in Hamilton, and I went to meetings in Ottawa, and I came to meetings in Toronto. And one day I would venture out of the Chelsea hotel where I was staying, and I went north on Yonge Street. And I saw a man that looked like one of them. And I got curious and I got temptation. And I followed him a bit. And I saw him going somewhere. And then that night, when all the men told me they were going to go to Zanzibar to meet the ladies of the night, I went out again. And I went north of Yonge. And I saw some of them like that. And I followed. And one of them went up the stairs in the establishment, and I followed, and I went up too. And when I got to the top of the stairs, I saw something that I had never seen in my life. Men dancing with men, kissing each other. There were men dressed up as women singing. I wanted to leave. I am not one of them, I said to myself, but I was curious. And so I went to the bar and ordered a beer. The bartender had no shirt on, had a beautiful torso. I couldn't stop staring at him. I got my beer and I went to a corner of the bar and I drank it. And nobody spoke to me that night. But the next night I returned. The bartender was the same guy. And he said to me, "Hi, 50? How does he know I drink 50? You remember?" And he said, "What's your name? You're new here." And I said his name was Jason, and I said, "My name is Sebastian." Very quickly, and he said, "Oh, good." He gave me my 50, and I sat down, and at the edge of the bar, I started looking at a man, and he looked at me, and I turned around, and then we looked at each other, and then I looked one more time, and he wasn't there. And then I felt the hand massaging my shoulder, And I got frightened. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Peter, he said. Cheers. And he just sat down with me, and then I wanted to leave. I was nervous. But he struck a conversation with me. And he knew everything about Chile. He was a Marxist-Leninist. He struck a nice conversation. We even danced together. I had never danced with a man before. And towards the end of the night, close to last call, I said I should leave. I have a meeting early in the morning. He said, oh, please don't. Come with me. Let's go around the corner. There's a fun place for us to be. To continue the party, he said. And so I went with him. And I went around the corner. There was a neon sign that said Romans. So we went inside, and he was known to the people there. The man gave him a key. He showed it to me. I got a room, he said. And we walked inside, and at first I thought I was in a gym. I saw all these men with white little towels walking around, but then I realized where I was. I wasn't one of them. I wanted to leave. And Peter grabbed my hand, and he said, come with me. And he explained, this is not what you think it is. I said, it's a bordello, I'm not a puta, I said. No, this is not, well, not exactly. He said, this is a fun place. You can have fun. You can actually go out on your own and walk around and do your own thing. But before you go out, I started peeling my clothes. He said, before you go out, I took my shirt off. He says, I have to make love to you from a Marxist point of view. And I fell into his arms. And I left late that morning. And I went back to the hotel. And I didn't want anybody to know that I had been out, but this man saw me and he said, oh, had a late night, eh? I didn't want anything to be known about me, he thought it was with women or men or anybody, but there will be always solidarity forever amongst union members, so nothing was said. I returned to Toronto many times. I went to the St. Charles Tavern, I drank. I met Peter and his friends. I became a friend of theirs. I went to Romans many times. I enjoyed myself. One night I was at Romans having fun in my room. And I heard noises, horrible noises. People were kicking doors. And we got frightened. I managed to put my pants on and my shirt on. And I grabbed a towel and my door got kicked. And I was yanked out by a police officer. And they lined us all outside. And they were taking pictures, so I managed to put the towel in front of my face to cover it. But it was yanked away. And the flash went on my face. We were taken to a police station. And there we were in a small holding cell. There was far too many men. One of them was passing out. We asked the police for water, nothing. We asked them to take care of that man, nothing. Now, I had been in picket lines in Chile, and I had seen what the cops, those carabineros could do. I had been at the Great Strike of 1978 in Sudbury, and I knew what the police could do, but this was excessive police brutality. This was far too excessive. Now, I was very distraught. I didn't know how would I explain myself to my compañeros, my family. I thought I was finished. What would I say? I'm not one of them. I remember that at one of the union seminars we had, there was this lawyer, his name was Robert Wright. He had instructed us on some anti-police techniques kind of thing, and he said, like, if you have any problems, if you're in a picket line and you get arrested, this is my card, call me. And I had his card in my pocket. Now, he looked like one of them, and he sounded like one of them, so I thought it'd be okay to phone him, because we were given a phone call each. So I called him. And he knew what was happening, and he said, I'll be there soon. And so he came to the police station, and he must have had connections, so he got me out of there. Before I left, pictures were taken of me, fingerprints. But I didn't have to come back. And I went to the hotel, and the next morning I went to Sudbury. And though I came to Toronto many times, and And I walked by the St. Charles, and I walked by the Romans and other bathhouses. I never went in. One time I saw my friend Peter walking down the street. He looked like he had aged several years. He looked frail and sick and had spots in his face. And he said he had something that was going around in the community, and he was ill. And I looked at him, and although I was polite, I didn't really want to talk to him too much. And he said, you should get checked. But why would I get checked? I wasn't one of them. The bastard bosses started laying us off, moving our operations in several other places, and we started losing our jobs. And one by one, Sergio, Pato, and myself returned back to Toronto with our families, unemployed. We organized ourselves again. We went to the cafes in Bloor. We drank our cortados and organized ourselves politically. We wanted the Pinochet bastard to go down. He hadn't gone down yet. And as soon as he went down, Sergio said, I'm going back to Chile. And I wanted to go back, and El Pato said, don't go back. Why would you go back? Well, Sergio went and I followed him with my wife. I wanted Paulina to come with me, come with us. And she said, I'm 20 years old, I'm not going back. I'm a Canadian. I am not going to go back. I'll go visit La Abuelita, but I'm not going to go back. The day I left, I told her, she wanted me to tell her the story about the condor and the mouse. And she said, Dad, I'm 20 years old. I went back to Santiago. And just like Sergio, I couldn't find a job. I was still blacklisted for my involvement in the union. And Sergio returned. I wrote a letter to Patricio that I wanted to come back and if he could have me over to this place until I found my own place. And after I received a letter after he said, I told you so, he said, come back, my friend. So I returned. And in a couple of months, I found my own place on Blue Street overlooking the Christie Peak. And me and El Sergio and El Pato returned to Dunes Cafe. And we drank our cortados and organized politically. This time we were defending Fidel and the Cuban Revolution. Sometimes I went to those establishments, those bathhouses. I was still not one of them. I'm not one of them. Last night, my daughter Paulina came to visit me. She was upset. The only thing I knew what to do was to tell her this story. Once, there was a condor who flew majestically up high in the Cordillera de los Andes. And when he was hungry, he flew down in search of his favorite food, which was mice. Mice had to be careful. If they were not careful, they would get caught. They would be eaten and perish in the claws of the condor. But there was one trickster mouse that played tricks on the condor in order to survive, and survive he did.
Stand up, all victims of oppression.
faggot. That's what the sign said. Stop the cops, said another. It's cold, but not as biting as it was last night. The crowd of people around me cuts the chill. It's safe and warm, like the inside of a bath. Earlier tonight, I was standing in a darkened doorway at Yonge and Wellesley, reading the Enough is Enough pamphlets they were handing out at the bars. At 11 p.m., it seemed like I was entirely alone. But within half an hour, traffic had to be rerouted. We overflowed into the streets in defiance of the meager police presence trying to hold us back. This was the smiling, laughing, hugging, shouting assembly. Now here's the soundtrack, here are the speakers. Peter Maloney, Reverend Brent Hawkes, Jim Monk, and the body politics token lesbian Chris Berchel with her "No More Shit" chant were all met with resounding approvals by the crowd. But no one seems to know exactly what to do now. Someone yells out finally, "Take the street!" So we do. The numbness gives way to fury, the confusion to rage. And now we're thousands strong, screaming, marching, whistling down the Champs-Élysées to Place de la Concorde. Or just walking south on Yonge. Sure beats the hell out of any dinky gay pride picnic, that's for damn sure. I mean, they'd be lucky to get enough people out to block a sidewalk. I would have never come out tonight. I'm sure almost anyone else here wouldn't have either. If it hadn't been for our lovers, our brothers, our mentors, our friends being arrested en masse last night. I mean, you have to admit, all the Holocaust allusions are really fucking disturbing. I mean, this is the supposed ghetto, right? And the comment about the shower should be hooked up to gas? Never again means never again. Fuck you, 52. I know it wasn't all of them. I know they were just doing their job, paying the bills. I'm sure some of them have hearts, or at least shame. But I hate them. I hate them for what they did. And yet, all I can do is just hope for mercy. Just north of Dundas, there's a line of police cruisers parked at irregular angles, like a barricade. We should do this all the time, says a short-haired woman next to me. I laugh. How silly we must look to them, like a bunch of silly queers causing such a ruckus over the right to what, exactly? What is homosexuality than just something you're supposed to do in the dark? But now, we were all going to do it, together, in the dark, in public. In fact, I've never seen so many of us before in one place, ever. And I'm surprised to see there's almost as many women as there are men. And I wonder, if these were women's spaces that had been raided, would we see as many men coming out in support? The bars are emptying anyways. Out of the bars, into the streets! We're like a murmuration of starlings moving in undulating unison with no one leading. Voices pipe up inventing chants as we go. Toronto's gays are here to stay. Everyone joins in. No more raids, I hear ahead of me. Gays fight back, I hear behind me. Can we dream ourselves into reality? Can we convince the world that we do in fact exist without forcing them to see us? We lost a vocally supportive mayor. George Hislop lost the alderman race. The body politic was raided. Glad they had books confiscated. I mean, 3 months ago, down south, they voted for Ronald fucking Reagan. I mean, the most powerful man in the world is that actor from that monkey movie. It's just... It's unbelievable. I just find it incredible how gay and lesbian, how threatening gay and lesbian spaces are, and how much the straight world has to force its way in. They could have raided any goddamn hotel in the city last night and found the exact same shit going on, or even worse. I have plenty of rage to spread around tonight, but I also have love. I have love for my lover. I miss him right now. I wish I were in his arms. I wish he were warming me instead of this crowd. We agreed a long time ago to never go to the baths together. It was his turn to go out last night, but it could have just as easily been mine. And now he's at home, with his room number marked in indelible ink on his hand, like a prison tattoo. And here I am, trembling, marching for him. In fact, I never even intended to march. I thought there would just be some speeches, the donation hat passed around, and then we'd all just return home to our closets. What good is any of this going to do? What's the point? That is the only refrain in my heart tonight. A few of us give in to the provocations and start rocking a police cruiser. There's a tinkling and cracking of glass. You smash our windows, we smash yours, I guess. There's a man who jumps up onto the hood of one of the cruisers and lets go a glorious stream of piss on the windshield. Fitting, as the cruisers themselves are yellow. There's an ashen-faced officer behind the wheel. They're totally unprepared for this onslaught. Their numbers are pathetic. We turn west down Dundas, and there's a streetcar heading east, marooned in the queer flood. We wave our placards at the three puzzled passengers inside. Smash! A window. Smash! 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 What are we doing? We're not New York or San Francisco. We're more like a stunned procession of mourners. The only thing that's ever been allowed to shut down Yonge Street is Santa Claus Parade. I mean, if they would have even tried this 3 years ago, we would have been cowed into submission. We would have taken it. But things have been changing. Things aren't like they were when I first came to T-Dot in 1974. It was the Gay Youth Toronto Club at the 519 Community Center that started it all for me. I remember my boyfriend at the time taking his van, loading it up with us kids, and heading to Peterborough to protest the Anita Bryant concert at Ken Campbell's church. We stood together in 1971 on the steps of Parliament in the pouring rain with a decalogue of demands. First time in our history. 3 years later, 4 lesbians were arrested at the Brunswick Tavern for singing the irreverent cover song, I Enjoy Being a Dyke. 1 year later, the Aquarius Bathhouse in Montreal was firebombed. 3 customers died in the fire. 2 of them were buried in anonymous graves because their families didn't claim the bodies. Perpetrators still have never been found or convicted. In 1977, the gay and lesbian bars in Montreal were raided again, and our brothers and sisters rose up and resisted the police. 2,000 strong, and 2 months later, their rights were secured in provincial law. Up ahead, there's a human barricade of 20 or 30 teenage boys blocking our path at University Avenue. They have their arms linked. It'd be admirable if it wasn't sad. If they know anything about us, they know fags always turn and run. Fuck the queers! Fuck the queers! They chant. They face the bearing tide of history and are swept away like pebbles. We finally reach our destination, a towering building of glass and concrete, Emerald City, 52 Division. We pull back the curtain. The TV station lights and cameras illuminate the cordon of 200 police officers surrounding the building, probably their entire police force. Some of them have removed the badges from their hats to avoid being identified. They don't move. Now, for once, they have to stand and take it from us. Even when we scream in their faces, Sieg Heil, and call them fucking fascist pigs, spit in their faces, and blast a chorus of ear-splitting whistles. I have the anger inside me of someone living in a society that finds my existence inconvenient. Someone harassed on streets that are never safe. A media that undermines my self-respect. A hatred that has returned full measure, and that will return and stay if tested. We're through with bargaining. I mean, the cops have been raiding, harassing, ridiculing, abusing, arresting, entrapping, and surveilling us for decades already. Ellen Gardens to Hyde Park. This isn't about enforcing laws, this is about enforcing morality, and we're the criminal element. Baths have been operating in the city for the past 15 years, and for some reason last night they're all of a sudden body houses? I mean, there's nothing wrong with the bodies I've seen in them. They took their names, their addresses, phone numbers, their employers' phone numbers. They can do with them whatever they want to. They can publish them in the Sun. Most of these men don't want to deal with the humiliation of a trial or even paying for representation. They'll plead guilty and walk away with a conviction and a police record. How is my lover going to find a new job? How is he going to explain to his new employers he needs to take time off work to go to court? How does he explain to them he has a criminal record? Minorities across the city are watching the evening TV news right now and are saying, "Welcome to the club." I mean, this is our initiation. If it could happen here, why couldn't it happen in Edmonton or Vancouver or Calgary or even Hamilton? This is a national epidemic. Or what if there were black men who were arrested or undocumented migrants? What if they're certainly worse fates? Perhaps solidarity is the greatest silver lining in all of this, discovering our common enemy. We're no longer just drag queens, leathermen, chicken, or clones who spend most of our time complaining about each other. It used to be the activists out in front lines pulling everyone along with them, but now we're all out in front pulling them. It seems like the marshals have smelled blood in the air. They try to urge the crowd to start heading north. "To the ledge," I hear cry. I must expect next to hear, "Whose park? Queen's Park." The crowd starts to move a little bit faster as there's a pack of wolves behind us ready to pick off any stragglers. I try to dodge the TV cameras the best I can. I'd rather not invite any unnecessary trouble. I mean, what if my parents would see me? I keep hearing gay rights now, but why? I mean, if you want your rights protected, move to Quebec. I mean, it's one of the only places in the world where they're guaranteed. I mean, all three of our provincial parties just walk away from an amendment to the Human Rights Code. And who exactly are we, anyway? Aren't we just a bunch of strangers who only know what we look like from the pants down? Do we have anything in common other than sex? Do we have a sense of shared destiny or common purpose? It seems tonight we've been forced to see ourselves as a community because we're being treated like them. Whether we like it or not, we've become a minority through adversity. The crowd moves faster as soon as Queen's Park is in sight. Hundreds of silhouettes race across the snowdrifts to the massive oak doors of the legislature. They start slamming and throwing their bodies against the doors, causing them to vibrate and buckle. It's exhilarating to watch. I can hear the booming from here. They huff and puff and nearly blow down the seat of power. If it hadn't been for the 20 police officers punching, kicking, and shoving their way in to the front to protect the holy doors. People's faces are bloodied. A man is screaming out that the cops beat his sister over and over. We shine red in the TV light. I've had enough of this thrilling spectacle. We've made our point. My throat is raw. I'm forever changed. It seems everyone else concurs. The crowd starts to slowly dissipate, but it's not over. Marshals tell us to stick together, escort each other home, stay safe. I don't want to wait. I head northeast back home, but I realize that I'm entering the belly of the beast. At Yonge and Bloor, we're severely outnumbered by drunk heteros and cops. Insults are hurled back and forth. Some are chased by others. I see half a dozen cops surround a man, drag him to the ground, start kicking and punching him. A photographer with the body politic is pulled to the ground by his hair, his flash attachment smashing on the pavement, his glasses breaking. Animals! Fucking animals, all of them! Especially the ones who just stand by and do nothing and let it all happen. I want to scream at them, where are you? Where are you? Instead, I just take back alleys. It's 2:30 a.m. Saturday, February 7th, 1981. 289 arrested as found-ins, 20 arrested as keepers. Second largest mass arrest in Canadian history. 4 bathhouses destroyed, 200 police officers, $38,000 in damages from sledgehammers and crowbars. $250,000 of taxpayer money. 6 months of infiltration. 12 years after Pierre Trudeau removed himself from our bedrooms. Nearly half a dozen arrests in the past 3 hours. And no one will pay for these actions. They're free to assault us with impunity. I've beheld the terrible anger of the oppressed, and am sick and tired. They wanted to push us back into the closet, but instead, thousands of faggots, and I use that word with pride now, rampaged in the streets, taking them over, confronting society's bigotry. Toronto's never seen anything like this before, and hopefully never will again. In fact, just this morning, I was reading in The Advocate an article about some kind of gay cancer sweeping through Greenwich Village. At least it couldn't possibly be as bad as this was. I return home, in the dark, into my lover's arms.
That's kind of weird to sing this song alone, so I invite you all to join me if you know the words on the chorus, okay?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We are family.
If anyone does want to stay and ask questions, talk back, we're here. We'd be happy to tell you about our process, about our storytelling. But we're so happy to have had you here and make us feel like these stories are so important. Thank you all so much.
Just before that, we have programs for Myseum Intersections. There's still some events going on for the rest of March.
Storytelling Festival.
We have a few documents here, and please check out also along the walls here, we have some of the results from our World Cafe on the 12th, so please enjoy yourselves.